A man in a black wool coat stands behind an oak table in a stone hall on a mountain in central Italy. In his palm, the broken French seal. He has read the letter once. He sets it down. He says, "No." This is the story of the republic that survived by refusing. In the year 257, a stonemason from the Dalmatian coast crosses a ridge in central Italy, carrying nothing but his chisel and a small bundle of clothes. He has walked 23 kilometers from the harbor at Ariminum. He climbs a limestone mountain. He stops near the summit. He stays. 1,500 years later, on a night in May 1797, a man in his 70s stands in a marble hall in Venice and reads aloud, in a low voice, the document that ends 11 centuries of his republic. He cannot keep his hand from trembling. Outside, French troops are already in the lagoon. 147 years after that, on a summer night in 1944, 100,000 refugees move in silence into railway tunnels carved through the same limestone mountain the stonemason climbed in 257. The mountain has not moved. The republic founded on it has not moved either. This is San Marino, the oldest republic on Earth. It is also the smallest, 61 square kilometers, the size of a single neighborhood in most modern cities, a territory that has not grown by a single meter since 1463. The question this video asks is simple, and the answer took 1,500 years to arrive at. How does a community this small survive when every neighbor larger than it falls? Venice fell. The Papal States were swallowed. Lucca was absorbed. Genoa was rewritten. The kingdoms of Italy went through 12 constitutions in 2 centuries. San Marino kept its own, written in 1600, still in force today, without interruption. It was occupied by Cesare Borgia in 1503 and recovered in 6 months. It was occupied by a Spanish cardinal in 1739 and recovered in 4 months. It was offered cities by Napoleon in 1797 and refused them all. It was bombed by mistake in 1944 and sheltered 100,000 refugees the same summer. The answer is not geography. It is not luck. It is not isolation. The answer is a doctrine articulated by one man on a March afternoon in 1797 in a room of stone with a letter from Napoleon Bonaparte open on the table in front of him. He said no, and the office he held, the republic he served, and the doctrine he articulated have not changed since. An old shepherd walks 6 goats up the western flank of Mount Titano in central Italy. It is October. The sun has not yet touched the summit. He stops on a curve of the limestone path and rests his left hand on his staff. With his right boot, he braces against a flat stone. He looks down. Below him, the plain of Romagna runs east toward the Adriatic, still blue in the shadow of the early morning. He cannot see Rimini from here, but he knows it is 23 kilometers ahead. He hears, faintly, the first church bell in some village in the plain. Then the silence comes back. He is 50 years old. His father walked this path. His grandfather walked this path. His great-grandfather walked this path. He does not know in which century he is living because the question does not matter. The mountain is the same mountain. The goats are the same goats. The plain below is the same plain. Above him, 3 small towers rise from the 3 peaks of the mountain. Guaita in the north, Cesta on the highest point, 739 meters above the sea. Montale, alone on the southern spur. They were built between the 11th and the 14th century. He does not remember which century built which tower. They have been there as long as the mountain. The territory he is walking on is 61 square kilometers. From north to south, it takes a man on foot a single afternoon to cross. From east to west, 2 hours. The republic that has owned this mountain since the year 301 has never expanded beyond what was set in 1463. It has never tried. The shepherd reaches a higher pasture. He lets the goats spread. He sits on a stone warmed by the sun that has now reached the eastern slope. He takes from his pocket a piece of hard cheese and a piece of bread. He eats slowly. Below him, in the city of Rimini, empires have come and gone. Romans, Goths, Lombards, Byzantines, Franks, Papal States, French, Italians. The bells he hears now are not the bells his grandfather heard. The plain has changed names many times. The mountain has not. A stonemason stands on a construction site in the harbor city of Ariminum on the Adriatic coast. It is the late afternoon of a summer day in the year 257. In his right hand, a short chisel. In front of him, a cracked block of limestone. Behind him, 2 foremen of the imperial prefecture walk down the line of workers, taking down names on a wax tablet. The empire wants its list. The mason sets the chisel down. He wipes the white limestone dust from his forearm. He turns his face west, toward the interior. 23 kilometers in that direction, a blue silhouette rises from the plain, a mountain with 3 peaks. On foot, 2 days. His name is Marinus. He is from the island of Rab on the Dalmatian coast. He came to Ariminum to work on the rebuilding of the city walls. He is also a man the empire would prefer to register because in the 3rd century, the empire is uneasy with men who refuse the public rights. The foreman will eventually find out. He packs his small bundle. He walks out of the city before sundown, west toward the blue silhouette. 2 days later, he reaches the mountain. He climbs. He stops near the summit on a level shelf of limestone with a spring of fresh water. He stays. A small community gathers around him. Other refugees mostly, masons, farmers, a few women who had also walked out of cities. They quarry the rock of the mountain. They keep to themselves. The text, written 9 centuries later, says that on his deathbed, Marinus spoke a single sentence in Latin to the community around him. Relinquo vos liberos ab utroque homin. I leave you free of both men. The 2 men he meant were the emperor and the bishop of Rome. Whether he said those words on that day, no one can prove. The sentence has the polish of later literature, but the shape of what he meant is real. He had walked out of one city to escape one authority. He did not want the community he founded to fall under another. What he founded that night, in the year 301 by Republican tradition, was the smallest political community in Europe. It is still there. An abbot sits on a low wooden bench in a side room of the episcopal palace in Rimini. It is the morning of February the 20th in the year 885. His hands are folded on his knees. Across from him sits a papal legate in a black robe. On the table between them, a parchment unrolled halfway. The abbot is here as a defendant. The bishop of Rimini, a man named Deltone, has claimed that certain pastures and woodlands on the slopes of Mount Titano belong to the Diocese of Rimini, not to the community of San Marino. The abbot's name is Stephen. He represents the community on the mountain. He has come in front of an outside judge to argue that the community has held those lands without interruption since the time of Marinus, 6 centuries earlier. The legate's finger moves across the parchment. The Latin lines are dry and procedural. There is the legal language of property, witness, and continuity. Stephen's feet are cold on the stone floor. February in Rimini is wet. The wind is hitting the outer shutters. He waits. The judgment, when it comes, is in his favor. The document that records it survives. It is called the Placido Ferretrano. The original is still in the State Archive of the Republic of San Marino, 12 centuries later. It is the oldest written evidence of San Marino as a political community, distinct in law from any neighboring authority. What the Placido proves is not the romantic story of a founder. It proves something stranger and more useful. By the year 885, 600 years after Marinus walked up the mountain, the community he founded was organized enough to file a lawsuit, to send an abbot, to produce witnesses, to argue from precedent. It was not yet a republic in name. It was already a republic in habit. The men and women on the mountain met regularly in an open assembly they called the Arengo to decide common matters. They did not need a king to coordinate. They had a habit of self-government, 3 centuries old by then, and a written record to prove it. Stephen rolls up the parchment. He walks back to Rimini's western gate. He begins the climb home. A man stands in front of an oak table in the upper room of the communal house of San Marino. It is the late afternoon of December the 12th, 1243. On the table, a parchment that a notary has just finished writing. He is now sprinkling fine sand over the wet ink to dry it. The man's name is Filippo da Sterpedo. Beside him stands another man, Oddone di Scarito. Both are residents of the mountain, elected an hour ago by the Arengo, the General Assembly of Heads of Family, to serve as the 2 consultals of the commune of San Marino. Filippo holds a ceremonial ring in his left hand. He has not yet put it on. The notary finishes and blows softly on the parchment. The Latin is short. Philippus de Sterpedo et Odo de Scarito, consuls communis Sancti Marini. Filippo of Sterpeto and Oddone of Scarito, consuls of the commune of San Marino. This is the first written record of the office. The men of the mountain have borrowed the institution from the Roman Republic, 12 centuries dissolved. 2 officers, not one, equal in power, each able to veto the other, each in office for a short, fixed term. In San Marino, the term is 6 months. The Arengo chooses both. Neither can be re-elected immediately. Neither can act alone. After 6 months, they step down and return to private life. The reason for the design is older than the document. A community this small has no margin for ambition. A single ruler would become a target for outside powers and a temptation for inside ones. 2 rulers, watching each other, serving briefly, are harder to bribe and harder to remove. In 1317, the title will change. The consules will be renamed Capitani Regenti, Captains Regent, the chief executive officers of a self-governing republic. The office has not been interrupted since. For 783 years, 2 people have been chosen every 6 months to serve as heads of state. The ceremony is still performed twice a year, on the 1st of April and the 1st of October, in the same town on the same mountain. Filippo puts the ring on his finger. He nods to Oddone. The notary rolls up the parchment. A scribe sits in a cold upper room of the communal house on the mountain. It is January, the year 1295. In front of him, an inclined writing desk. On the desk, a fresh sheet of parchment held flat by 4 small lead weights at the corners. To his right, 3 rolls of older parchments, fragments of the statutes drafted 40 years earlier in 1253 that the commune had begun to write down piece by piece. To his left, a horn inkwell and 3 goose quills. He wears a brown fingerless wool glove on his right hand. The fingers are stiff with cold. He dips the quill. He holds it over the parchment. He hesitates. What he is about to do has taken 3 centuries of habit to make possible. The community has governed itself by custom since the time of Marinus. By the Placido of 885, custom had become precedent. By the election of Filippo and Oddone in 1243, custom had become institution. Now custom must become law. He writes the first capital letter. The pen scratches loudly in the silent room. The smell of oak gall ink rises every time he dips the quill again. The text he is copying out is not new. The commune has deliberated it for 2 years in the Arengo and in the smaller council. What he is producing today is the clean copy for the archive. The statutes of 1295 are the first substantial body of written law of the Republic. They cover civil and criminal procedure. They define the duties of the consuls. They regulate the use of pastures and woodlands. They specify when the Arengo must meet, who may speak, and how votes are counted. 3 centuries later, in 1600, an expanded version will be promulgated under the title Leges Statutae Republicae Sancti Marini, the statute laws of the Republic of San Marino. That text of 1600 is the Constitution still in force today, 426 years later, untouched in its core articles, the longest continuous legal document in active use in Europe. The scribe in the cold upper room does not know this. He blows on his fingers. He dips the quill again. He writes. Pause for a moment. 1,000 years have passed since the stonemason climbed the mountain. The community he founded has become, by accident and by habit and by deliberate writing, a small political object that holds itself together. A constitution, an assembly, a diarchy, a short term of office, a written record. It is enough to call itself a republic. It is not yet enough to survive what is coming. In the next 500 years, the small republic will be threatened in order by a Duke of Rimini, by the son of a pope, by a treaty of protection from another pope, by a Spanish cardinal, and finally, on a March afternoon in 1797, by a sealed envelope from the most powerful man in Europe. Each moment will ask the Republic a different question. Will you grow? Will you submit? Will you fight? Will you bend? Will you accept what is offered? The answers will be, in order, yes, no, yes, but only on paper, no, and the strangest answer of all. The next chapter begins on a limestone outcrop on the eastern slope of Mount Titano in the summer of 1463. A soldier from the militia of San Marino is looking down at the walls of a castle that does not yet belong to the Republic. The Republic is about to grow for the last time. A soldier sits on a limestone outcrop on the eastern slope of Mount Titano. It is July 1463. Evening, he has loosened the leather jerkin from his chest and laid the short sword beside him on the stone. Below, in the failing light, he can see the castle of Serravalle. The walls belong to Sigismondo Pandolfo Malatesta of Rimini. Inside a few months, they will not. He is 25. He has served in the militia of San Marino for 6 years. This is his first campaign outside the original territory of the mountain. Behind him, on the summit, the three small towers of the Republic stand black against the violet sky. He can smell wood smoke from another San Marino patrol camped 500 meters away. Crickets that had been steady all afternoon go silent as an owl passes low over the valley. The war he is fighting is not really his war. The Papal States under Pius II and the Duchy of Urbino under Federico da Montefeltro have come into open conflict with Malatesta of Rimini. San Marino has joined the alliance because the alternative is to be absorbed. The reward, when the war is won, will be territorial. San Marino will receive 4 small castles taken from Malatesta: Titano, Fiorentino, Montegiardino, and Serravalle. The territory will more than triple in size, from the mountain alone to the present 61 square kilometers. This will be the last time San Marino accepts new territory. After 1463, no expansion, not by treaty, not by purchase, not by gift, not by inheritance, not even when offered 3 centuries later by Napoleon Bonaparte. The map of San Marino in 1463 is the map of San Marino in 2026. The soldier on the limestone outcrop does not know this. He is thinking about the harvest he is missing on his family's small vineyard. He is thinking about his cousin, who fell 2 weeks ago at the siege of Mondino. He is thinking about a young woman in the town who has not yet given him an answer. He pulls the jerkin back over his shoulders. The night cold is coming fast. He picks up the sword. He walks back toward the smoke of the camp. Cesare Borgia sits in an oak chair lined with scarlet velvet in the main hall of the castle of Serravalle. It is early afternoon, June 1503. He wears a short black velvet cape, knee-high leather boots, and a large sapphire ring on his right index finger that he turns slowly without looking at it. 2 of his condottieri stand behind the chair in half armor. On the low table in front of him, a map of Romagna unrolled, a goblet of wine half full, and a sealed letter from the Vatican not yet opened. He is 28 years old, Duke of Romagna, son of the reigning Pope Alexander VI, commander of the army that in less than 3 years has conquered every small lord between Rimini and Ravenna. The only city of the Romagna that he has chosen not to absorb completely is San Marino. He has chosen instead to humiliate it. Borgia has not destroyed the Republic. He has occupied it. He has moved the provisional capital from the summit of Mount Titano down to Serravalle. The old town on the mountain is now empty of political function. The captains regent are still in office. Technically, they have nothing to govern. The smell of new leather rises from his boots, of spilled wine into the oak of the table. Outside, in the courtyard, the displaced people of San Marino stand in silence, watching. He hears the silence without turning his head. In the previous winter, a Florentine secretary named Niccolò Machiavelli had spent 4 months observing him at close range. Borgia had taught him everything he would later write about in a small book called The Prince. The use of fear, the use of speed, the use of decisive cruelty, followed by ceremonial mercy. The book is not yet written, but the lesson San Marino is being given is already its first chapter. What none of them in the courtyard knows on this June afternoon is that Borgia is sick. He does not show it yet. His father is also sick in Rome. The Pope will die in August. Cesare will lose Romagna by winter and die 4 years later on a battlefield in Navarre. The mountain will outlast him by 500 years. A captain regent stands in front of a rectangular table in the main hall of the communal house on the mountain. It is the summer of 1631. Morning. On the table, a parchment folded in three, with the red wax seal of the Pope, broken along one edge. The captain has just opened it. 3 counselors of the Grand and General Council sit on benches along the table, reading the document in silence. Through the open window, the morning sun cuts in at a low angle and falls on a corner of the parchment. Outside, a single wasp hovers and is forgotten. The captain is in his 50s. He has served before. Almost 30 years ago, in 1602, the Republic signed a treaty of protection with Pope Clement VIII. In 1628, Urban VIII confirmed it. Now, in 1631, with the death of Francesco Maria della Rovere, the Duchy of Urbino has been absorbed by the Papal States. The treaty enters into full force. What it means, in plain language, is that San Marino is now formally under the protection of the Pope. What it also means, in plain language, is that the Pope has formally recognized that San Marino is not part of his territory. It is a sovereign neighbor, protected but not owned. The distinction is the entire purpose of the document. Urbino, the neighboring duchy, has just disappeared. Its population is now papal. Its laws have been replaced. Its rulers have ended. San Marino has read the same political weather and, decades in advance, signed a piece of paper that uses the word protection to mean something closer to recognition. The Republic accepts the umbrella to keep the umbrella from becoming a roof. The captain regent watches the wasp. He watches the counselors read. He listens to the silence in the room. He knows that 31 years before this morning, in October of 1600, the Republic also promulgated a written constitution, the Legis Statutae, the same code that the scribe in 1295 had begun. The pieces are now in place: a constitution, a treaty, an office, an assembly, a mountain. The Republic is ready for what is coming. It does not yet know what is coming. A cardinal sits in a folding leather chair inside a campaign tent pitched on a hillside east of Serravalle. It is the night of October the 17th, 1739. He is 75. He has the red cardinal's robe pulled half open over his right shoulder only. Beneath it, a black cassock. On a low table in front of him, a map of Papal Romagna, a goblet of wine, and an open copy of the Legis Statutae Republica Sancti Marini. He is reading the Constitution of San Marino, line by line, by the light of a single tallow candle. His name is Giulio Alberoni. He was born in Piacenza. He was once the first minister of Spain under Philip V, then exiled, then restored to a quieter life as papal legate of the Romagna. He is ambitious in the way of old men who fear they have one chapter left. Outside the tent, 400 papal soldiers are camped in a long, dark line along the road. Serravalle was taken at sundown without resistance. The garrison was 3 men. They opened the gate. Alberoni is here, by his own description, to restore order. The pretext is 2 San Marino fugitives, Pietro Lolli and Marino Belzoppi, accused of crimes against the Pope's peace. The real reason is closer to the candle. A cardinal of 75 wants a small republic to enter the modern world of papal administration under his name. He reads the Latin slowly. He marks passages. He drafts in his head the amendments he will impose. The captain's regent will be required to swear loyalty to the Holy See. The Arengo will be modified. The independence of the diarchy will end. He does not know that the resistance has already begun. In the houses on the mountain, in the inns of the four castles, in private letters carried by mule to Vienna and to Rome itself, the people of San Marino are appealing over Alberoni's head. To Pope Clement XII, in 110 days, on February the 5th, 1740, Clement XII will send a delegate named Enriquez to revoke Alberoni's authority and restore the Republic. The cardinal blows out the candle. He sleeps in the cold. He will never enter San Marino again. The Doge of Venice stands at the front of the great hall of the Doge's palace. It is the night of May the 12th, 1797. 537 patricians sit in the rows of benches that line the walls. Candles burn in the heavy chandeliers above them. The hall is colder than it should be, even for May, because no one has spoken loudly for an hour. The Doge's name is Ludovico Manin. He is 72 years old. He wears the corno ducale, the ceremonial cap of office, sweated through where it touches his temples. In his right hand, a sheet of paper. The hand is shaking. He has tried twice to keep it still. The paper is a decree of dissolution, voted on tonight by the Great Council, composed under direct pressure from a French ambassador already in the lagoon. In a few minutes, the Council will vote to ratify it. What is being dissolved is the Republic of Venice, 1,100 years of continuous self-government, the longest-running constitution in Europe until this moment. Outside the palace, on the canals, French troops are already in position. Bonaparte has not bothered to come in person. He has sent a letter and a fleet. Manin reads the words. His voice is low, almost inaudible at the back of the hall. A patrician in the third row writes down what Manin says next, in his own diary, in the Venetian dialect he spoke at home. Stanotte no siamo più sicuri neanche nel nostro letto. Tonight we are not safe even in our own bed. He reads the decree. The council votes. The Republic of Venice ends. Manin walks down from the front of the hall, through the patricians who do not stand for him because they no longer have a doge to stand for. He walks out a side door into a corridor of the palace. He removes the corno ducale and hands it to a servant. He says, "Take it. I will not need it." He goes home and locks himself in a private chamber. He will live another 5 years in a small house, mostly silent. He never wears the cap again. In the same year of 1797, in the same 6 months that ended Venice, Bonaparte will also dissolve the Republic of Genoa, the Duchy of Modena, the Papal States, and the Cisalpine territories that had once been Milan. The map of Italy is being redrawn from a tent in the field. By the time the snow falls in November, only one of the old Italian republics will still be standing. It will be the smallest. It will be 61 square kilometers, and it will already have done the thing that saved it. In March, 2 months before this night in Venice, in a room on a mountain. Three months before that night in Venice, on a gray February morning, a captain regent of San Marino stands with his back to a window in the upper room of the communal house on the mountain. The winter light enters behind him. In his right hand, a folded letter. The French seal, a Republican eagle pressed into blue wax, is broken along the fold. He is 37 years old. His name is Antonio Onofri. He is in his second term as Captain Regent. He has held a seat in the Grand and General Council since the age of 28. He has served as Secretary of State for nearly 10 years. He has the longest political memory in the Republic. The letter is signed by Louis-Alexandre Berthier, Chief of Staff of the French Army in Italy. It demands that San Marino immediately surrender Vincenzo Ferretti, the Bishop of Rimini, who has taken refuge inside the Republic with his personal property. He is accused of inciting crimes against the French. The letter ends. Refusal will result in the immediate intervention of French troops. Onofri reads the letter once. He turns it over. He reads it again. Outside, on the stone stairs, French couriers wait for the written reply. The horses have ridden from Rimini through the night. Onofri walks to the table. He writes a reply that the couriers will carry back 2 hours later to Berthier in Rimini. The reply is courteous. The reply is precise. The reply promises that the Republic of San Marino will do everything in its power to satisfy the request of the French Republic. By the time the couriers reach Rimini that evening, the bishop has already left San Marino through the eastern border with his property in 3 carts by a road that the French have not yet posted. Where he goes afterward is no longer San Marino's business. The Republic has done everything in its power. It cannot help that the bishop chose to leave at the same hour as the couriers. The French read the reply. They are not pleased. They are also, however, slightly impressed. 3 weeks later, a longer letter arrives in San Marino, written by Bonaparte himself. Onofri opens this one with both hands. "52 years later, on a hot July night in 1849, the Captain Regent of San Marino stands at the top of a stone staircase in the courtyard of the communal house. He is in his 50s. His name is Domenico Maria Belzoppi. Torches burn against the stone walls. Below him in the courtyard stands a man with a beard, in a dust-stained uniform, with a red shirt open at the chest and a sash across one shoulder. Behind him, 1,500 volunteers, exhausted, ragged, silent. Beside him, a pale woman, pregnant, supported by a soldier. The bearded man's name is Giuseppe Garibaldi. The woman is his wife, Anita Ribeiro da Silva. They have walked through enemy territory for 18 days. They have come at last to the only piece of Italian soil where the Austrian army has no right to enter. They are asking for asylum. Belzoppi grants it. He invokes the right of asylum the Republic has held since the time of Marinus. Garibaldi and his men remain in San Marino for 36 hours. The Austrians surrounding the territory do not enter. By the second night, Garibaldi disperses his men and slips out with Anita and a small group. Anita will die 2 days later in a farmhouse near Comacchio. Garibaldi will live to see Italy unified. In 1861, when the new Kingdom of Italy is proclaimed, Garibaldi himself will write to Vittorio Emanuele II, requesting that San Marino be left independent. The king will agree. The unification of Italy will pass around the mountain. The same year of 1861, on May the 7th, a letter arrives in San Marino from across the Atlantic. It is signed by Abraham Lincoln in the first year of the American Civil War. Although your dominion is small, your state is nevertheless one of the most honored in all history. Lincoln writes the letter that as the largest republic in the world is breaking apart, he writes it to the smallest. He sees in the survival of San Marino what he is fighting to preserve in his own country. Onofri has been dead 36 years. The republic he saved is being recognized by Garibaldi and by Lincoln in the same year. The doctrine has held. It will be tested again. A family enters the railway tunnel at the eastern slope of Mount Titano just before dawn on the 27th of June, 1944. The father carries the youngest, a girl of 3, in his arms. The mother holds the older 2 by the hands, a boy of 8 and a girl of 6. The father has one small suitcase. The mother has another and 2 gray wool blankets folded over her shoulder. The tunnel is called Montale. It is 502 meters long, cut into the limestone of the mountain. They have come up from Rimini, where their house has been on fire since yesterday afternoon. The air inside the tunnel is 15 degrees colder than the air outside. The little girl shivers and pushes her face into her father's neck. The mother coughs once. The smell is dense. Bodies, wet wool, the mineral smell of the rock. The sound is one continuous, low hum, the sound of many people breathing in the dark. They are not the first to arrive. Lanterns burn at intervals along the curved wall, marking small territories of blankets, suitcases, sleeping children. The family finds an unclaimed stretch of wall 50 meters in. They spread the blankets. They sit down. They do not speak. By the next morning, the tunnel holds 2,000 people. By July, the small republic of 15,000 inhabitants is sheltering close to 100,000 refugees, most of them Italian, some of them Jewish families fleeing the deportations that started the previous autumn in Rome. The Republic hides them in private homes, in the basements of the palaces on the mountain, in the cellars of farmhouses in the four castles. When German and Italian fascist inspectors come asking, the Republic denies their presence. The denials hold. The years before this morning are easier to summarize than to remember. After Onofri, the Republic survived the Congress of Vienna. It survived the unification of Italy by Garibaldi's intervention. It survived the First World War as a neutral, while more than 100 of its citizens volunteered for the Italian army. It survived the rise of a local fascist party, the PFS, in 1923, which governed for 20 years, and in 1942 passed a law against mixed marriages, modeled on the Italian race laws. The Republic's record from that period is not clean. The party leader, Giuliano Gozzi, refused entry to German Jewish refugees in 1938 to avoid friction with Mussolini. The PFS fell on July the 28th, 1943, 3 days after Mussolini fell in Rome. The new government declared neutrality. It announced in writing that the Republic would shelter any refugee who reached its border. On June the 26th, 1944, British bombers struck San Marino in the mistaken belief that the small railway line on the mountain was being used by the German army. 263 bombs fell on a territory of 61 square kilometers. 63 people died. The Republic accepted apologies after the war, refused reparations, and continued sheltering refugees. The Germans occupied San Marino for 7 days in September of 1944. The Republic survived that too. What was preserved on the mountain in 1944 was the same thing preserved in 257 by a stonemason and his small community. Refuge, the smallest political community in Europe, took in 100,000 people because 1,700 years earlier it had been founded to take in one. Antonio Onofri stands behind a low oak table in the upper room of the communal house on Mount Titano. It is the afternoon of March the 12th, 1797. Stone walls a meter thick, oak beams darkened by 4 centuries of wood smoke. He wears a plain black wool coat. He has decided deliberately not to wear anything ceremonial. On the table, a letter recently broken open, the seal, a French eagle in dark blue wax. The wax is still warm under his thumb. Across the table stands the man who delivered it, 50 years old, in a dark blue civilian coat over a white waistcoat, not in uniform by his own choice. His name is Gaspard Monge, founder of descriptive geometry, former Minister of the Navy, at present Bonaparte's Commissioner for Sciences and Arts in Italy. Along the walls, on low wooden benches, sit 12 members of the Grand and General Council. They listen. The letter is from Bonaparte himself. It does 4 things at once. It recognizes, in writing, the sovereignty of the Republic of San Marino. It exempts the citizens of the Republic from any French taxation. It offers 1,000 quintals of wheat, about 100 tons, in a year of real hunger. And last, it offers the right to incorporate neighboring cities of the Romagna in whatever amount the Republic should desire. Onofri reads the letter aloud in Italian. He sets it down. He looks at Monge. He looks at the 12 men along the walls. He waits. The discussion takes less than an hour. The councillors agree in low voices. The Republic will accept the recognition. It will accept the wheat. It will accept, with thanks, the 4 ceremonial cannons Bonaparte has also included, though these will never in fact arrive. The territorial offer is the one they will decline. Onofri turns back to Monge. He says, in French, that the Republic of San Marino accepts with deep gratitude the wheat and the recognition. As for the offer of expansion, the Republic asks the General to permit it to decline with the same gratitude. The Republic of San Marino is what it is, he says, by remaining what it has been. Monge takes the answer back to Bonaparte. Bonaparte, by all accounts, is impressed. 2 months later, he will dissolve the Republic of Venice in a single night. San Marino he will leave alone. Onofri will live another 28 years. He will serve 7 terms as Captain Regent. He will die on the 26th of February, 1825. After his death, the Republic will name him Padre della Patria, Father of the Country. There were 148 captains regent between the office of Filippo da Stirpeto in 1243 and the office of Antonio Onofri in 1797. There have been around 800 since. The arithmetic is not the point. The continuity is for nearly 800 years, twice a year, 2 people have walked into a chamber on a mountain in central Italy and taken an oath that has not changed in essence. San Marino has not been the most powerful republic in the world. It has not been the richest. It has not been the most innovative. It has not won battles that changed Europe. It has not produced philosophers or scientists who altered the course of human thought. Its art is modest. Its literature is small. Its army has fought in only one campaign in the last 500 years, and that one in 1463 to a limited end. What it has been for 1,725 years is itself. The question this video began with was simple. How does a community this small survive when every neighbor larger than it falls? The answer is also simple. It chooses not to grow. The doctrine is older than Onofri, but Onofri sees you put words to it. Onofri said no to Bonaparte, not because he was brave, and not because he was sentimental, and not because he could afford to. He said no because on that March afternoon in 1797, he understood something that most political men in most centuries do not understand. He understood that what made his republic able to refuse Napoleon was the same thing that had made it able to absorb Marinus in 257 and the Bishop of Rimini in February and Garibaldi in 1849 and 100,000 Italians in 1944. The Republic was small enough to remain a refuge. Growth would have ended that. A larger San Marino in 1797 would have been a target for the Austrians, then the Italians, then the Germans. A larger San Marino in 1849 would have closed its borders to Garibaldi. A larger San Marino in 1944 would have had a population that could not be fed and a territory that could not be hidden. The smallness, every time, was the survival. This is not a doctrine that can be exported. Not every people can be San Marinese. Not every territory can be 61 square kilometers. The geographic luck of Mount Titano is part of the answer. The strategic calm of Italian politics, in some centuries, is part of the answer. The willingness of larger neighbors, including Napoleon and Garibaldi and Lincoln and the survivors of the Second World War, to recognize the small republic as worthy of recognition is part of the answer. But the deepest part of the answer is the doctrine. A republic that does not desire what other republics desire is harder to destroy. It offers no expanding surface to be attacked. It offers no rich frontier to be coveted. It offers instead the quiet difficulty of being where it has always been. There are some things that survive because they keep changing. There are other things that survive because they refuse to. San Marino is one of the second kind. The three towers on Mount Titano are still there. They are visible today in the late afternoon from the plain of Romagna, when the mist comes up from the Adriatic and softens the limestone. They are exactly where they were in 301, in 1243, in 1503, in 1797, in 1944, in 2026. There is an inscription on a wall inside the Palazzo Pubblico. It is in Latin. It is attributed to a stonemason who climbed a mountain in the 3rd century and died, eventually, of old age, surrounded by the small community he had brought together. Relinquo vos liberos ab utroque homina. I leave you free of both men. He did. They are. Onofri kept the thread by refusing to let his republic become anything other than what it had been. He built a small wall around it. He kept the wall standing for the rest of his life. The republic survived because he refused to enlarge it. There is another way to keep the thread. It is the opposite gesture. 15 years after Onofri's refusal, on the morning of August the 22nd, 1812, a young Swiss traveler, disguised as an Arab merchant, walks alone down a narrow gorge in the mountains of Edom, in what is today southern Jordan. The walls of the gorge rise 300 meters above him. The path is narrow enough in places that a man with outstretched arms can touch both sides. At the end of the gorge, in the late morning light, a facade carved directly into pink sandstone begins to come into view. Then another. Then an entire city, half buried under sand that no outside observer has seen in 600 years. His name is Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. He is 27 years old. He is about to walk into a place that the world had stopped believing existed. The next video is being prepared, the next civilization.